Hey everybody, so today we are here for a Bloomberg session. We'll be having an interaction with one of our S30 alumni, Anirudh. He happens to be, which cohort you were in, Anirudh?
December
cohort. You were in December cohort, and I think I was the instructor.
Yes, you were.
We had a lot of great interaction in that cohort. All right. Hey, Anirudh, can you just give us a brief introduction about yourself? Which school? Where do you come from in India? And just a little bit of overview.
Okay. I'm going to start from undergrad because when I came here, the first thing that I had in my mind, which was obviously wrong, and S30 helped me sort of understand that, was that it really depended on where I did my undergrad. And that would define my career in the US because I did my master's at Texas A&M, which is a good school, but my undergrad was from Mumbai University. It was not from an NIT or an IIT. And a lot of my peers at A&M are all IITians and NITians, right? So early on, I had that big thing about my background, but I've learned quickly that 2 years of grad school or even like 1.5 years is a lot of time for two things. One, strengthen up your computer science fundamentals, and to find a job, right? Because I'm answering like in the context of S30, a lot of the grad students that attend masters in the US, and I'm talking to masters especially, their goal is usually to find a good job and enter the American economy. People that do PhD have a research sort of intent, but most masters will want to look for a job. So that's the first thing in my introduction that I want to sort of impart, and that is, it doesn't matter where you've come from. The fact that you've joined S30 is usually a good indicator.
Hey, Sai, I'll request you if you can mute yourself. You're not mute. It is disturbing everybody. And Anirudh, we can keep this conversation diverse from S30 because a lot of students are outside.
Right.
I don't want it to be sounding like
yeah, of course.
So just generalized out of context of S30.
Okay.
That's
so
it.
I think.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I think what I meant to say was it's important sometimes, especially if you go to a good school, right? And you sort of feel like you've reached here and it's above your weight class, to sort of interact with people that don't go to that school. Then you'll sort of realize that, oh, you're not the worst across the scale. You're just low in a very high average, right? So that was my point. And of course, I did my internship with Goldman Sachs. And then very early in my fall semester, this semester, about 2 weeks ago, I got my full-time offer from Bloomberg. So that's the introduction.
Got it. That's awesome. So can you walk us through the interview process, both at Goldman for the internship? Starting with Goldman, what was the interview process for the internship? How many rounds? Who took your interviews, and what kind of patterns you were asked? How many rounds? All these things for Goldman, and then for Bloomberg as well.
Okay, so for Bloomberg, for Goldman, my interview was a little easier because it was for an internship role. And that is usually the trend, that the interviews are harder for full-time roles and versus internship. For my internship interview at Goldman, I had an online assessment, which was a HackerRank assessment, 2 questions. Both of them are fairly doable, right? They're not questions that, basically Goldman's OA is not a weed out OA. Like Twitter's or TikTok's OA is a weed out OA, right? But Goldman's OA is not a weed out OA. They just want to make sure that you're a human applicant that can do some coding, right? So it's not very bad. And I will also say, I think, funnily enough, that is the hardest part of the Goldman interview, the OA, because none of the questions that I was asked in the interview were that. Basically there was a bar raiser question, and I'll talk about this, but none of the questions that were, I think, making a decision on whether I'm a good employee or not, none of them were really hard. I think really none of them were, and I'll talk about that in specifics. After the OA, they send you a higher view interview, and if you are applying for a engineering job, the higher view interview is exclusively behavioral, and the interview asks you like very trivial questions like, what would you do if you send a wrong email, right? So it's purely
Just a moment. Let me mute everybody else. Soumya, you are disturbing everybody. All right. Anirudh, you can unmute yourself and you can carry on from there.
Okay. So after the higher view, which again, to recap, OA, fairly easy, but not very easy, but fairly easy. Higher view, behavioral, but the interview, this was the first like serious interview that I gave. And I think the only interview that I gave in real pressure, because this was sort of February. I needed an internship, January, February, I think. January, February. I needed an internship. I needed an internship for May. And I had already sort of, I see Jaspinder making a face, and it's probably because I joined too late. And I agree. It's definitely too late to join in January or December for a internship in May. Don't make the same mistake. But again, I will say that I was able to pull it off because I was prepping on my own, right? I was putting in the time. I just didn't have direction. So that's why I came to S30. So that was the super day was 2 rounds, 40 minutes each, 45 minutes each. The first question was very easy. It was it's a question that I did at S30. It's a stack question. It's a design question, and it's basically yeah, exactly. There's only 2 design stack questions early on in the S30 syllabus, if I'm not wrong, and it's one of those. I think that like they make us sign an NDA right when you interview, so I don't want to like because
no, you should not be telling about the question. Yeah. Everybody understood which question you are asking.
Okay, exactly. That's the question, guys. That's it.
Right,
that was it.
And that was the first question.
First question, and of course, like I blazed through that question. Again, I will say you're probably, if you go through S30 or any prep, if you do it rigorously, you're going to see questions that you know. Pretend that you have not seen it before. Just pretend. Don't like do Ekta Kapoor acting, but like actually pretend. Like what I like to do is just go through the thought process out loud, but go through it in a sense of sort of convincing yourself that it works, even though you know it works because you've seen the problem. But go through it in a sense that you're convincing yourself, because sometimes what you do is if you know the solution, you know how to code it out, but you'll forget how to explain it well because you know, but the interviewer doesn't know that you know. And sometimes even if you write the code, right, that's not good enough for the interviewer because they're not lead code's compiler. They are not going to push it against test cases and see if it works. They're going to eyeball it in the same amount of time that you've come up with it. In fact, you have an advantage because you came up with it, right? They have to look at what you're doing, right, and figure out in real time, and also put away the solution that they know works and look at your solution with a fresh perspective. I'm just trying to make you guys realize that if you interview enough, you realize that the job of the interviewee is equally as hard as the interviewer. So you want to make it easy for everybody and just talk a lot. So I think that's what I did well, because I actually did not ace my Goldman interview at all. I remember sending my mom a WhatsApp message saying that 5-6 days later that I got a rejection email, even though I didn't get it. Because every time I called her, she used to just ask me if I got the offer or not. And I didn't want to put her through it. So I just told her, like, I didn't get it for 2 reasons. One, after you give an interview, forget about it. Because again, that's something that I know Jaspinder is smiling because I didn't do correctly. When I was in the cohort, I started slacking off after I got the Goldman like job, right? Which is not good because honestly, this environment that you're building around yourself, whether it's with the help of S30 or with the help of your peers in your grad school, there are very few times where you're going to be able to build this momentum from scratch, right? So when you have that momentum built, till you get your dream offer, don't stop. And I did that wrong. I stopped, right?
Let me stop you over there. We'll come into the specific that how to go about this. But right now we'll focus on the tactics of the interview only. So first question was a design question, and after that, you had a second question.
After that, like I could tell clearly that he was not interested in evaluating me for the job anymore. It was like a bar raiser, because the way he started off with the question, I knew immediately. Like he asked me a lot of stuff about this question. Then he said, we have about 15 minutes left, but I'm going to give you a very hard question. That's what he said. He said that to me outright, right? So I knew that, just think about it as a, so the second question was actually really fun. And I think I can tell you this in more detail because I don't think there is a similar question on lead code or here. So I'm going to go a little bit. Basically, the tactics were you had to do backtracking greedily, right? Basically, what they had said was, let's say I'll remove the business logic of the question. There's some letters, right? There's a pair of letters, A comma B. What that means is that this pair means from A you can go to B, right? And there is a path that starts from A, visits everything, and reaches, let's say, Z, right? You have to find that path from a set of like edges, basically vertices which represent an edge. So basically there was no context of a graph per se other than the fact that he said that A to B there is a link, right? So what you have to do in that problem is start greedily from A, just basically like a for loop recursion with backtracking. You at each level of your recursion you start with A, you check what the neighbors are, you pick the next neighbor and just go recursively. And like basically what you do in backtracking, put it on your path, remove it, and that will work. It just works. Basically, I did not come up with this entire solution there, but I told him because there was not enough time, but I told him what I told you, right? And oftentimes, if you tell the interviewer, their mind switches off, which is very good for you because they are no longer testing what you're saying. They are agreeing with what you're saying, right? So this was good. So this was the first interview. The second interview was just a debug question. Like it was a big corpus of text. There were like you had to find the average distance between two words, and there were a lot of conditions. There was some solution there which was wrong. You just had to debug it. And in this interview, again, the problem with this interview was that I wasn't able to finish it. The whole debug, I don't think it was meant to because it was a very big debugging problem. But I got along with my interviewers very well. So well that it was supposed to be a 45-minute interview, but 15 minutes, like an hour after the interview, he realized that he is supposed to allow me to ask him questions. So that was very good. Like he just started to panic and he was like, oh, we are way above time. Let's ask me a couple of questions and then we can wrap this up. So that was my entire Goldman process.
Awesome. So the second question seems more or less like word search. That is, we have the starting
Yes,
and then we go in the DFS, then we come back if it is not working and mark it unlisted kind of scenario, right?
exactly like word search.
All right.
Yeah.
That's it. Okay. So one design problem based on stack and then one backtracking problem based on the graphs. That is good. That's not
No,
it.
the
That's
backtrack
not
problem.
yeah.
No, but like for me, but I'm also like giving like you guys the advantage of all the people that I talked to, right?
Right.
And their interviews were not like this. Like their
Yeah,
interviews
that's
were
what I was thinking that internship for the internship interview, it was not a
yeah,
bad interview. It was a good standard.
no, yeah. I think the only reason why I said it was easy was because the actual hard, the meat question, no,
Yeah.
he sort of nerfed it, right? He said, "This is hard. You can't do it. Just try." So I was like, yeah, if that was a part of the question, then this was probably very hard. Because doing that, there's a similar question on lead code and it's hard. It's called itinerary planning or something. If you guys are interested.
All right. All right. So Bloomberg, what were the rounds? Who took it, and what was your experience?
I first big again. No, like Goldman was the first company that gave me a chance, and I will always be thankful. And I'll talk about why. But there's a big difference in the engineers. Like when I was interviewing with Bloomberg, when I was interviewing with Goldman, the interview process with Bloomberg was so much fun. Now I can attribute this to other things. I already had a job. I wasn't stressed out. But the engineers just seemed like, there's a level plus plus. Like
Yeah.
there was one, they had like a little bit of an edge. Even in their resumes, like there was stuff like Cornell and Ivy Leagues and stuff like that. Okay, but the process, it's 5 rounds. For like the general process is 5 rounds. 3 of them are 1 hour long tech interviews and hard tech interviews for the most part. I don't think hard for people that have gone through your list, but just like you have to it's like you have to show up. It's a one-day match and you have to show up. Out ho gaya jaldi to it's a problem, right?
Right.
So, and then after the 3 tech rounds, there's 2 rounds. But these 2 rounds are okay. Like they are 30-minute senior engineering manager round and a 20-minute HR round. The senior engineering manager round is still tech, but it's derived entirely out of your resume. I'm talking about these 2 rounds first because there isn't much to talk about in these.
Right.
The HR round is just them showing off, basically. They will just show off about their organization and how awesome they are and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
It's honestly just,
they have to sell you, they sell themselves.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's all that is for
Right.
the 20 minutes. For the engineering manager round, I still feel like it's an elimination round because the curiosity with which this guy who worked for 20 years at Bloomberg went through my resume, it didn't feel like he was doing something just, to pass his time. It felt like there was intent. And there is a lot of machine learning and software dev stuff on my resume, and he focused on both, but his orientation was like the way he was asking me questions, I could tell that these guys have done something like this at Bloomberg. And that's why he's asking me questions about these things. It wasn't just going through my resume one at a time. Like he was almost going through like a tech stack. And then he was like, okay, why did you use this? Why did you use this? And stuff like that. So it was interesting. Those were the 2 rounds. But those, when you get the phone call, right, you'll get a phone call. The HR will tell you that you've gotten through the first 3 rounds. Now it's 2 rounds, right? So these 2 rounds are sort of like home stretch, right? The meat of the process is the 3 hours before you get to be in this wonderland. It's those 3 hours, right? And for me, I'll tell you about my process. I was considered in what they call an expedited pipeline. There's 2 ways to get into an expedited pipeline from what I understand. And this is not a fact. This is my opinion. Take it with a pinch of salt. One is through an event that Bloomberg holds or the Grace Hopper conference. That's one, or one of that's one way. Like it's a recruiting pipeline. The other is if you just absolutely, and again, I didn't attend the conferences, so this is a little weird for me to say, but if you absolutely kill your phone screen, then they put you in the expedited process. Because my phone screen was general, but every interview that I gave after that was expedited, and this is the only data that I have on which I'm making the decision, other than talking to other people, right? People that I spoke to that have got, like, I know somebody who got into Uber, Microsoft, Google, right? 3 companies for her intern. So she is also interviewed with Bloomberg. She is in the expedited process. Somebody that I know that didn't give a phone screen that well is not. So that's the data. That I'm just trying to convince you guys. Okay. So the phone screen was, there's a standard template for all Bloomberg tech interviews. 15 minutes is about you, right? They will just talk about themselves for like very little time, and then they will give you 5 to 10 minutes to talk about yourself. Keep it short, because all the amount of time you spend here, you're taking away from time that you can spend writing code. So keep it short. If you want to impress them, there will always be time after, because there is time after also. There is about you, the coding part, like the questions, and then about you asking them questions. You can show off in that time also. It's fine. And you can show off after the confidence that you've killed the tech round, right? So I have a very standard answer. I talk about my master's, my undergrad, my internship. That's it. That's my tell me about yourself. I don't talk about my favorite color. There are people that will say, right, talk about qualitative things. I don't talk about that. Because I know that an org like Bloomberg does not care.
Right.
Like, to put it bluntly, they don't give a flying. They don't care.
Yeah.
They don't care, right? So my first question, like my first round was interesting. My first round was interesting. The first question was a DP problem, a variation of coin change.
Okay.
It wasn't bad. I went through every DP problem, I come up with a brute force recursive solution. I memorize it, and then I have the discussion about time complexities, right? And then I asked the interviewer, do you want me to tabulate it? Because I know that tabulation is where I am going to have trouble. Recursion and memorization is not my biggest fear, because it depends, right? For people, that the way and I know your face, because when you train people, you bring tabulation, but that has been my problem even with us, right? Recursion is more intuitive for me.
Yeah.
Right. So but the way why I do that is because most interviewers, nobody has told me to tabulate it. If you can come up with a recursive solution, memorize it, give them correct time and space complexities, that's enough. Right.
Got it.
And when I say, do you want me to tabulate it? It implies confidence that I can,
Yeah.
even if they don't make me do it. Right.
Got it.
So that's what I did. That was it. And it was very good. Like 12 minutes, I was done.
Okay.
12-15 minutes, the whole thing I was done. He was a little like I'm sure he expects it, but then he asked me like a very stupid question about whether I have to memorize my base case. And then I looked at my code, I looked at him and I said no. And then he started laughing. He was like, I didn't know what else to ask. But then the next question was very interesting. I didn't expect a design question, but it was a design question in my code.
So for the first question, did he make you code it out or not?
Yes. Okay. Sorry. The lead, it was a lead code like question, hacker rank. I coded it. It was very like basically choose not choose, right?
Got it.
Coin change. Yeah. So I did that. I defended it. He was happy. We moved on. And then he said, this is just going to be a chat. I don't want to look at code or anything. This is just going to be a conversation. And then he started, basically, I won't tell you the question because again, but I can tell you what it touched upon. It was basically a scheduling problem. That's what it boiled down to. There were some processes, some requests coming in. It was a uniscalar architecture. That means one process handles one request at a time. And he, like, I asked him all the, like that basically he started off with a very generic process request. How will you make a system? Nothing, no constraints, no nothing. So basically you have to start, right? Tell me constraints. If there are no constraints, he wanted me to start with a trivial solution. I did, like, no constraints, I will do whatever I want, right? Everything is a solution when there are no constraints, correct? So I did that. Then he put constraints, and basically I think the thing that really blew this interview out of the water was basically what I've described means that at some point he wants this system to scale up and then scale down, right? And in that, I brought up the conversation of dynamic arrays in C++. And I said that I will not add a new process, I will double, because there is foundational math behind this, and it works for a very low latency language like C++ in a very frequent operation like allocating new memory. So I'm sure I can defend this math when I take it to a macro system. And of course, like if I was doing this for Bloomberg, I would do my own research. But in an interview setting, I cannot.
Yeah.
Right. And why I brought this up is because this is also something that I think you should do. Distinguish between your approach towards a problem in an interview setting versus what you would do at the job. Because at the job, everything is much easier. And you basically have infinite resources in terms of knowledge and the internet.
Got it.
So that's because I could have been saying something very stupid, right? There, like this guy could be scaling up systems for a living at an org like Bloomberg, but I have to tell him that this is if then. If I can hold water in logic, then nobody can make me like look stupid, right?
Yeah,
that's the whole.
That's a great tip, actually. This is the first time that somebody's one of our speakers is giving this tip. This is pretty important.
Yeah.
And so you used what we discussed in of the dynamic arrays. Right?
Yeah.
So actually, the basics are going to be used
exactly
a lot of places, right? So this was the second problem discussion, and how much time it took for you to have the discussion?
I think this problem was basically where he decided to stop, because we went through 3 solutions for different system like constraints. Yeah. And then at one point he was just like, okay, I'm done. So we can just talk. But I think, yeah, I think the other thing I do like with the thing in my mind is to always go over the interview period. Right. Like if I know the interview gets over at 11, no, I'm physically trying to push it to 11:15. If he says stop, like I have to go, okay. Yeah, but he should not walk out with the feeling that, oh, this got over. Yeah. He should walk out with the feeling ki ho gaya, like there couldn't have been more. Yeah. Right? And that does happen when you're having great conversation with people. Then you don't remember the time, right? Got it. Exactly. Third round. What was the third round? Oh no, this was my first round. This was your first round, and DP problem was your second round. No, first round was DP problem and design question. Oh, this was that is the thing only. So 2 problems. The thing with yes, the thing with Bloomberg is the big difference was pace. Like
Right.
Goldman was one problem of 45 minutes, they were okay with it.
Right.
Bloomberg is not. Bloomberg for the most part is not. Like unless in the third interview you will see. The second interview was standard tech, no wisdom to impart, two
So
questions.
first round, 2 interviews. So probably we should be having 2 interviews, two questions for our students. My students keep saying that 40 minutes are less for the mock interviews. And I was telling that in the real interviews it will be 20 minutes. And
it's 20 minutes.
That seems to be the case for it.
Yeah, for like I think for Bloomberg for sure. Like everybody like 2 questions at least, unless the third round. The second interview was same thing, 2 questions, but no design this time, lead code. And I was very surprised. It was very easy lead code. Like one of them was, I can tell you this, like all you have to do is sliding window, have a hash set, and make sure that there are no duplicates. So I think everybody knows this question.
Yeah.
Because it's like you just need the longest length of a substring.
Yeah.
That okay, I will not say more, but yeah, that's the question. The second question was you have to monotonic stack. You have to find to the right hand side, whichever element.
Monotonic stack is becoming very, very important everywhere.
Oh yeah, even Microsoft. Like I've seen lists. They have that like a lot of questions that they're monotonic stack for sure.
Right.
I think stack in general.
Yeah.
Stack and doubly linked lists.
This is around 2020 that we realized that monotonic stacks are becoming very, very famous, and that's why we added the histogram problem, and then we added the next hotter day and all this. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but very surprising for one technique to be becoming hot across the board. It's not only in Microsoft, Bloomberg, Google. Yeah, that is.
I think they're going to catch up. I think like these questions are getting leaked, and they didn't know yet. And like 2-3 years later, they'll probably switch it out.
Yeah, no, they even if they don't switch it, right? So they can get the basics of the students, even if they they can get the basics.
I agree.
Yeah, even if they would have told you that okay, I'm going to ask a stack question, still they can calibrate your.
Oh yeah. She definitely did that.
She definitely did that, right?
No, yeah. I mean, I think I should say this. Thank you for bringing this up. When I say like these questions, right? They're not copy pasted. Like the crux of the problem is that, but you still have to look through the like fancy wording, and sometimes there is no wording. She will just talk to you. They will just talk to you. Like in this instance, both my interviewers were women, and one of them pasted the question. The other one just talked to me. So you have to still go through all that, and then you have to figure out that. But the problem boiled down to this. Now the third interview, that was hard. And I honestly don't know if I can do that again. Like that was, that was hard. It was one question, no code. And it wasn't even like a system design question. It was a data structure design question. But he grilled me like a cheese steak. Like it was hard, dude. It was like, basically he started, we did our hi, hello, whatever. And then he said, this is a conversation. And I'm going to tell you the question because I feel like this is a very new question and it's popping up. Like I've seen a similar question on lead code made 2 days ago. So I'm just going to tell you in context of the lead code so I can slip out of the exact question telling. So basically the question is that let's say you have a race of sprinters. You guys have probably seen what a 200-meter race is like. You don't lap it. You run and it gets over. The point of this is that no point in the race is run twice by one runner. You run the race, it's over. Okay. There are H number, like a capital H number of athletes and M milestones across the track. Every time an athlete I crosses milestone J, there is a sensor which triggers a function called IJ. Basically, you get milestone number, athlete number. And you have to design a system that in real time gives you top K athletes. So like, yeah, I mean the immediate, like as soon as I heard top K, I priority queue.
Yeah.
I mean, that was by default.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I went through it and I came up with a good solution. Like the solution is you have to decide what priority means, right?
Right.
So he was impressed with this also, because this is also tricky. What you do is milestone number is a priority,
Right.
but there will be ties that you have to break. So what I said is that I'm going to define an atomic clock in my class. Every time I get a function call, I increment that clock. And if the milestone numbers are equal, whichever is lesser atomic clock came first. So that's how I define my priority, as a combination of two things.
Right.
Right. And he asked me what the comparator would be. And we know how to do that, right? Override less than in Python. I told him I can do all that. And he was okay. He didn't care about the code. He wanted that, like, how will you break the tie? Right.
Yeah.
So I told him all that. I told him the entire system. He asked complexities. I told him lock K, like insert, delete, lock K, and K lock K, unfortunately, K lock K for
Right.
popping out, because you have to pop K times. Each pop is lock K.
Yeah.
He smiled. He said, perfect. I was like, shit, really? Okay.
Yeah.
But then he said those words that you never want to hear in an interview. You can do better. He said, you can do
I was
better.
thinking, are you going towards a hashing solution or something like that?
Oh, yeah. That basically the solution that I came up with then was to flip the perspective. In my brain, nodes were horses.
Right.
In the priority queue, because I have to break ties.
Right.
Then I came up with a solution where nodes are milestones. Each milestone, I have an outer doubly linked list with hash map, like LRU cache, right?
Yeah.
So O of one access to everything. In each of those doubly linked lists, I have a doubly linked list of horses,
Right.
hash map. And basically, initially, it was a drawn out discussion. It was happening really quickly because all of this took 25-30 minutes. But there was a lot of stuff going on in like intricacies. First, when I came up with the solution, I told him I couldn't think of the hash maps immediately, right? Because I said priority queue in the same pace that I'm talking. He said do better. So I have to like jump into, okay, what are O of one like data structures? I went through a hash map really quickly, but hash map would be H log H, right? You have to sort the hash map on key.
Right.
I told him that I disregarded that, and I said, I don't know how I'm going to do it yet, but doubly linked list. He said,
so
doubly linked list.
it was more or less another version of LFU.
Basically, it's basically LFU. I had never done LFU, but because I knew, no, I had no two reasons. No,
this is the time when you got the Goldman internship. Right?
But I did everything you made me do religiously. That's why I was able to pull that out of my hat in that interview.
Yeah.
So, like basically,
not that
LFU.
difficult. Not that difficult.
I guess. I mean, it's difficult if you like have to do it when you've never done it.
In the interview setting, it is pretty good.
No, I think the difficulty was like he took this solution and then he grilled me on that. Then he basically went through another solution in which I told him I don't know how to delete yet because I had not thought of the hash map of the nodes, right?
Yeah.
I came up with a linked list and I told him I can think of inserting and all. I don't know how to delete this yet. So he said, okay, can you think of something without deleting? He said, yeah, I can make an object, put a Boolean, invalidate that object. And then he said, okay, then what happens? The problem with that, so like the discussion we had was precise for everything. He said, what is the problem with that solution? Why aren't you happy with that? I said, then the worst case scenario is M into H, right? Each milestone has H players, worst case, right? Because I've stacked them up across each. So M into H is even worse than like a logarithmic scale. So then he said, okay, how will you delete it? Then I came up with the delete. No, okay. Then he said, you can delete. Let's say you can delete with this. Then what is complexity? Then it's M plus H because you have to still go through M milestones. But globally, it's only H horses. Athletes. So you M plus H. And then the final solution is to dissolve the idea of milestones and logically define milestones. And here also I brought up the concept of operating systems and memory addresses. Basically, every time I reach a milestone that is not in my hash map, this horse that has reached this milestone is the head of my new milestone linked list, right? The logical linked list. Right. So I just have to store that. And he asked me, okay, how you have reached milestone 7. You have started to populate this linked list, but milestone 3, a slow horse reaches 3. What do? I said, I have milestone 4, right? So all I have to do is put it to the prev of milestone 4 because doubly linked list, milestone 3, the horse has to get added to the tail. So I just add it to the prev of my next head. If it's not, the next head is not there. milestone +1 is not in my hash map. Just add it to the global tail of my W linkage. So like he grilled me on everything that was possible, but I had answers.
Yeah.
So that went well. And then, but the other thing was, no, I would say that don't bargain for time. If they say interview quickly, just do it.
Yeah.
Especially for orgs like Bloomberg. I'll tell you why. Wednesday, I gave my phone screen. Sunday night at 8 p.m., she sent me an email saying you're through for the next round. Schedule. The only option available was 9 a.m. Tuesday, one day later.
Yeah.
Monday, Tuesday. I took it. 9 to 10 interview. 10:15, she called me. 12 o'clock next round. I took it. So you just have to keep taking them. And like that was like my thing. Like I spoke to some people, they said take time. But my father was like, don't take time.
Yeah.
When somebody's knocking at your door, you don't tell them ki baad mein aa jao bhaiya.
Yeah.
You should open and see what happens.
Yeah, that's what the why students ask for more time is because they are not prepared, and
Exactly.
half of the game is all lost over there only.
Exactly.
Alright, so if you're going unprepared and you're thinking, you cannot start preparing. I get a lot of messages from the students that okay, I have an interview 15 days afterwards, and I know that the student has already lost the game, because if this is the feeling right now, then they cannot be. They can ask me that okay, what to do in the last 15 days. That okay,
Yeah, that's a different question.
That's a different question. But if they if I get the energy from there that okay, they are going to start right now, and what they are going to do is they are going to go to their friends and they are going to ask that okay, what are the questions that you are going that you where is did it okay yeah so change in the camera, huh? So that's a great point that you made, that okay, if you are bargaining for the time. All right, that's a great discussion so far about the interview experience. Anirudh, you can go and grab some water if you want, and let's take a quick 1-minute break, everybody, and let's give him a water break, and then we can come back and we can have a conversation going. All right, Anirudh.
I'm just going to go through the chat and see if there are any questions that I missed. I saw somebody ask, can somebody like who some actually no, you know what, I won't answer because he said there's a break and some people might have gone away.
I'll take your question, Deeptrisha. I'll take your question. I remember. Let me let me have a quick conversation with Anirudh. All right, everybody, come back, please. So Anirudh, for these times, these are testing times. Not many students are getting the interview calls, but fortunately, whoever is getting the interview calls is clearing the rounds because they had a lot of time to prepare with us.
Yeah.
Now, but you know, how's your mindset right now, and how did you grab this opportunity, even on the expedited recruiting line? How did this opportunity came about? Was it because you were in Goldman already?
There's actually no way for me to like tell you why they asked me to interview with them, but I will say there's 3 things that sort of came up with my. I honestly, in tough times, you go to people that you sort of admire and respect. I talk to my father often, and he said, now you computer science guys know what it's like in every other industry. So if you're complaining now, like you guys were living, you've never seen winter. That's why you're complaining now. But this is a very good like thing for all students, right?
Right.
You're complaining now, but you're just used to being luxurious. This is the real world. This is how it is. Right?
Yeah.
So don't like it. Wo mindset is very easy to get into that. It was easy for my friend. He was 3 years ago.
Right.
You have a friend that's doing mechanical. Who's hiring mechanical anymore anyway? Right? So there's people that are with you, right? Jinka, whose industry is perennially like this.
Right.
What you have to go through for most likely what looks like one semester, because it seems like next semester tech companies are going to open. It seems like that's what the word on the street is. So
Right.
one semester. And what is the worst that will happen? If you go through the rigor, you will get a job.
Yeah.
The worst that will happen is you won't get a job you like.
Yeah.
For what, 1 year,
Yeah.
1.5 years.
Yeah.
The only thing, and my roommate, actually my flatmate, he's another really smart guy who's working with NVIDIA now.
Right.
But he always says that don't think of lead code or don't think of prep as a way to get a job. Think about it as your guilt-free card. 5 years later, you're not going to feel guilty, right?
Yeah.
Because everybody that's sitting here now,
Yeah.
most of you, and I'm saying this because I was that guy too. Most of you are thinking, yaar, undergrad mein kar liya hota na, sahi hota. Like most of you are going to think, like, if I would have done it 5 years ago, life would be great. If I would have done it 10 years ago, life would be great. 10 years later, also you're going to think the same thing.
Right.
So job, no job, interview, no interview, get obsessed with grinding.
Right.
Because that is the only way. Nobody that's good at anything, Michael Jordan, they were not obsessed with winning championships. They were obsessed with the trade. Right? They went to the gym not because they wanted to perfect their 3-point shot. They didn't know what else to do with their lives. Okay, I understand feeling the same way about computer science. You might not feel it that way. I didn't. But after my Goldman job, I know that this is what I want to do for a living.
Right.
And you will only be able to feel that way if you go in confidently. Yeah. The only way to go in confidently is to do everything that you can do. And unfortunately or fortunately, in our job, all that is grind lead.
Yeah.
So grind lead, I guess.
We have talked about your successes. Can you talk about your failures?
We touched upon this. Don't give up way too early. That was like, you might think, okay, the outcomes are Goldman Sachs and Bloomberg. So for you guys to think that that's a failure might be hard, right? Because you guys are looking for jobs. I understand that. But it's not that black and white. If I like, you can always think about it this way. I might have wasted a step by interning at Goldman. I interned at Goldman. I took a jump up and got into a better org. If I interned at Bloomberg, maybe I'll jump somewhere else, right? There is no upper limit. So every success you look at, right, there is somebody in the field that looks at it as a failure. And that is just the truth. There is nothing that you can do that is enough. Now, there are two ways to look at it. You have to decide what is enough for you. And that is the truth about computer science in general. Even if you're 20 years at an org, there will be some kid that comes in who's better at something than you. So I think in terms of my failure, one thing that I failed at big time was getting complacent. Don't get complacent. I failed so many interviews. So many interviews.
Talk about some really companies where you failed, and what were the critical mistakes that you did on the preparation front or probably the solutions front?
I might not have an answer exactly to that question, but I have something along that lines. I've never, this sounds wrong, but I've never failed a tech interview. I've failed a lot of interviews, but those interviews were non-tech. And why I'm saying that is because I was so scared that I cannot even clear a tech interview that I didn't apply for tech jobs. I applied for all the nonsense like peripheral field, like tech consultant, program manager. And I failed. I messed up my interview with Microsoft for PM, EY for tech consultant.
You were going
Boston
for PM jobs. People should not be, or this might be sounding a lot biased,
but no, yeah, we are here. Everybody's here to get an SWE job, right? That's why you're here.
Right.
That's the context of this conversation. And the only reason I did that was because I was scared.
Right.
So matlab interview, like failing an interview is far away. I was at a point where showing up to an interview was something that I couldn't even imagine doing.
Right.
That's why I spent most of my first semester wasting around applying to these jobs that I didn't even really want to do. But I thought that because I'm okay with people like soft skills, I thought I would get in, but clearly not. So I think that's when I realized that I'm not brave enough to get into a tech interview. And what I thought I'm good at, even those guys are rejecting me. So I didn't know what to do.
All right.
But I think that's what.
Yeah. Let me, because we are short on time, let me open it up for Diptrisha. You can go ahead. What's your Diptrisha?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello. That was a really insightful experience. Thank you so much for sharing. Actually, I have my Bloomberg technical phone screen coming up in the first week of November. So I just wanted to know, like, is November the first week of November is too late, or like is the full-time positions already filled up? This is my first question. And okay, you can answer this. I have also.
No, okay. Do you have options to interview before November?
I mean, I do have options. Yeah, I do see some slots open. So
then yeah, for sure. If okay, my answer is if that is the only date that's available, then there's nothing you can do with it. And Bloomberg hires all year round. So there is still a good chance. But if there is an earlier date that's available and you're not taking it, that means you reduce your chance in that hiring cycle because you let somebody else be better before you. And there's no guarantee that by negotiating 15 days, you're going to be better than anybody else in those 15 days. So I would say take it as early as possible.
Okay. And my second question is, like you mentioned about the 3 rounds you had, like, did you have a phone screen interview prior to that? Because I am not very sure on the on my like hiring process, because they just mentioned you have a technical phone interview for 40 to 60 minutes. So, I mean,
yeah.
And I also
that's a
have
very
a rank link and a Zoom.
No, that's a very good question, and I should have brought it up. The thing is that with the Bloomberg process, you like at least for the expedited process, and I think for others also, I did not get a super day. Each round was treated as an elimination round, and if I got into the next one, I knew that I cleared the previous one, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So at any given point in time, you will probably only know what your next appointment is.
Okay, sure.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Thank you.
Perfect. All the best. Do well.
Thank you.
All right. Butul, you can ask your question.
Yes, I already applied for Goldman Sachs. Like it's like,
Okay.
I cleared those 2 programs, like lead code program, similar to like they asked me regarding Sudoku and anagram program in India.
Okay.
But I don't know, like after passing everything, every test cases and all, like I don't know, my application got rejected. So I just want to know, like, what's the reason? Like after like doing 2 programs and passing all the test cases, and afterwards, like what's the process regarding that?
Okay. So I'm really sorry to hear that, but unfortunately, an OA can guarantee you a reject, but never guarantee you passage in the process. An OA usually with Goldman is if you clear the OA, then a human person looks at your profile. And then they decide whether they want to move on or not. So the probability is, and there's a few moving parts here, but the probability is that they looked at your resume and they decided that probably you needed to like get some more experience. Or the other possibility is that you chose offices other than Dallas. Because currently Dallas is expanding the most in engineering. And again,
Okay.
Anirudh, you got muted.
Able to hear you. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
Okay. I was just saying that anybody that's in the process with Goldman, if they ask you, make sure to tell them just pick Dallas, because Dallas is the most expansion that Goldman is seeing in engineering anywhere across the world. currently.
So
This
can
is
already I applied. So can I apply with other email ID creating by that? Like, can I get by? I think might be location might be so. This is the reason I'm asking you.
I don't think I'm an authority on that. So if you can do that and you get in, then good for you, I guess.
Okay. Thank you.
This is a good question in the chat. I want to take this question from Dinkar. If one gets a resume from Bloomberg, when should one apply? What is the freeze period like?
Oh, reject. I was not made aware of a freeze period at Bloomberg.
Okay.
So I don't know what the freeze period is.
Generally, it is
But
6 months to 1 year. It is going to be around that time only. Dinkar.
Yeah. I think I was just going to say that a freeze period is never something that you should worry about.
Yeah.
Like, what are you going to do? Not give the interview because you're worried about getting frozen out.
Got it.
So
Got it.
I think Bloomberg, though, not aware. So I don't know. So, but 6 months to 1 year is a good guess.
All right, Swami, go ahead. What's your question?
Hi, Anirudh. Thank you for conducting the session. I actually wanted to ask that I have my interview with Bloomberg, interview round next week, next Tuesday. So any particular advice you would like to give me, like a fast 1 week type of thing, like any particular key advices you would like to shed on that so that in 1 week I can utilize the maximum time I have now?
Okay, there's two things that you can do in the last 1 or 2 weeks of your prep is go to LeetCode, go to Bloomberg tag questions, sort that by frequency, and then just go through mediums. Don't waste your time on hard or easy, just go through mediums. If you finish all medium, right, then look through easy questions. But the thing about easy questions is don't try to solve them, read the question and just try to look for tricks, because there are often some medium questions that get put away as easy just because whatever. And there are some easy questions that have like a very hidden trick. So that's what you're looking for. And then in the last thing, go and look at hard questions. Because in my experience, I don't think Bloomberg is a company that tries to fail you in an interview. So medium is a good place to be. Okay. So now that is the first part of the answer. Sorry, you're good. But the second part of the answer is go to LeetCode discussion, and you should be able to find this one answer. Just Bloomberg, like Google, with keywords like LeetCode discussion, Bloomberg system design. You should be able to find this one post that has links to other posts related to Bloomberg system type questions. And that's a good index for your last 15 days, I would say 1 week to 15 days.
Okay, and like how many questions would you recommend? Like if I sort by frequency, or how many, like any particular thing, any
how many would I
number?
Recommend?
In top, how many questions would you say that would be a fairly safer bet to like?
There's I'm sorry, even if you do all 2,150 questions on LeetCode, there is no guarantee. I think your best bet is to do as many as you can, but every now and then when you start feeling like it's becoming stressful, right? Like don't just step away, because you're not learning much new in these last few days. You want to be in a state of mind where you're confident but also learning stuff. So that's why I say like last 10 days or 7 days, don't do hard questions, because you're going to put yourself in a mental space where you're just looking at questions that you cannot do, and that's not helpful.
Yeah, thank you so much for this.
Karan, go ahead. Karan, yes, go ahead, Karan.
So yeah, I'd just like to repeat the same thing that I asked at the beginning. The thing is, like, I just wanted to know what is the perspective of choosing that. The Goldman, as is, he knew the team, he knew what he signed up for at that point. With Bloomberg, as it is, it becomes a variable. Like, you know that you interviewed with the team, but at the end of the day, you still don't know what you are signing up for when you are joining there on the day one. So what made you choose something like a fixed thing that you know what you are heading into versus something variable? I'm not sure it would be financial alone, because I'm pretty sure the financials are comparable if you're considering COL. But what made you choose it?
So, and which before that, sorry, which is there a specific team that you interviewed with? If you're comfortable sharing with us.
Oh, I am comfortable. No, Bloomberg has a generalist application. So the best thing about Bloomberg, and I think this is really great, is they have a 6-week training period, and they will train you on every tech stack they use.
Got it.
Everything, whether you use it in your job or not.
Yeah.
And then for 2 weeks, you shadow 2 teams, and you choose whichever team you want, and they have to put you in that.
So that's why Karan is asking this question. That okay, with the
That's a very good question. So, okay, one thing I will say is the financials are not as comparable as you think. So that's a big factor. The second thing is, I think I talked about this earlier on also when I was in the cohort, Jaspinder. I will never be primary talent at Goldman Sachs. The primary talent at Goldman Sachs is going to be finance guys and investment bankers. Bloomberg, though from the outside seems like a finance org, it's a pure comsci company that has the best inline finance product. So it's synonymous with finance, but Bloomberg is a purely tech company. The way it is designed is to make sure engineers reach levels of leadership smoothly and quickly without competing with people that come from a diverse skill set. So that's one thing. One is financial. Second is primary talent. And the third thing is I spent time at Goldman, and the amount of credibility I was able to build at the company in 10 weeks, I should not have been able to build.
That's a great response. Like you should not, like it was too good for you.
I mean, it was like I worked 2 hours a day and played table tennis for 6 hours a day. I got so good at table tennis, now I have a professional ranking. So it was not challenging. Like honestly, I was challenged in the internship because of table tennis, not because of the work I was doing. So I quickly realized that this is not somewhere that I'm going to be pushed, right? And I am a workaholic. Like I need stuff on me to be able to perform. And this is the age, right? For the next 5 to 6 years, I foreseeably don't have a wife, kids. So work can be everything for me.
Right.
So to answer your question, it was too easy. And they didn't have any documentation, like no documentation. That was a big turnoff. Finance is not as close as you think. And Dallas is a boring city. Even though it's, but New York, man, it's New York.
That's a
Fully agree.
But let me take a cue from that okay, this is a very important point, that okay, he was not feeling challenged. And I always say that in my cohorts that okay, why we take certain kind of people in S30 as well is because alphas stays with alphas only. And that's the harsh truth. If you get them into a beta kind of environment, they will not be able to survive. So you have to challenge people up to that level. You have to challenge people up to 4 months, right? One after another. You have to keep giving them these things. So that's a great choice. And honestly, financials being challenged and not being in Dallas are great motivations to have. Does that answer your question, Karan? That's a great question, actually.
Yeah, fully agree. I have been to both New York and Dallas. So even my company moved me from New York to Dallas. So that was the primary reason.
We'll have discussions about Dallas some other time. All right. Diptrisha, go ahead. What's your question? I'll just give you one more question, okay? So ask as fast as possible.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, I just forgot my question.
It's fine. You can come back to us. All right.
Yeah.
Which university, Shubham?
I'm so sorry. I just remembered. Quickly, I'll ask. So, did you? I know that we have to compile it on HackerRank. So, does HackerRank like compile the question, or we just have to, come up with the edge cases and do a dry run for the interview?
Okay, so HackerRank can compile it, but see, these engineers know the question in and out. If you write a wrong thing while you're writing it, they're going to catch it. So if you are thinking that because you don't have to compile it, that's why people ask this question. I know it. I was an interview candidate. If you are thinking it's going to be easier because they don't make you run it, it's not. They won't make you run it, but it won't be easier. Because the other thing is, okay, I'll just stick to your question. HackerRank can compile your code, but Bloomberg doesn't make you run your code against test cases.
And it's pretty similar to what we did in S30 always also, right? You have done the contests that we have now. You are from which cohort, Diptrisha?
The current one.
Okay. So it will be coming up. All right. Okay. All right. Go ahead. Anybody else? Any other questions? Just give me a moment. I have to take an important call. Karan, if you can, Anirudh, if you can just interact with the students.
Yeah, of course. Of course. If anybody has any questions, I can answer that, or I can just tell you guys some information that I sort of put away because of time. Somebody just, Karan, I guess you're like probably the only person that's going to speak. What? Okay, he's back.
All right.
I had a
Yeah, go ahead.
question.
Yeah, go ahead. Who's asking the question? Go ahead, please.
Yeah, Jay here. So
Yeah,
I had
Jay.
a question. So I've heard in generally like Bloomberg requires like C++ as their core stack it is. So is it necessary? Because a few of my friends we all got in reject just because we didn't had C++ experience in our resume. I've heard like Bloomberg has a tech stack basically on C++. So this could be like one of the reasons.
That's a
I don't
good
know.
question, actually, because in the interview process, they did not care at all about the language. Like, it was free. But my resume does have C++ on it, because for the first 2 semesters when I came here, I was TAing for a C++ course. So I don't know if that helped me in the resume pick, but it does not seem like Bloomberg is an org that cannot go through the cost of training good engineers at C++ if they don't know C++. That's usually a more small org thing to do because they want to save on money. Bloomberg, and they train you in everything, right, for the first 6 weeks. So I am guessing, but my guess would be that it's not enough to get you a reject from Bloomberg if you don't have C++ on your resume.
Okay, here's one thing that we have about 1,000 people at Facts. This is unwritten rule. Object-oriented languages are going to get you better at better places. A lot of students, go for Python. It's a great language, but at the end of the day, people do have a preference that if you are knowing the memory level stuff, and which is the positive about a language is that it is hiding all the details, is actually the negative about. Engineers want to stay in the control of the things. All right. So it is going to be this bias will come out in some way or another. All right. So you can use any of the languages, but if you have object-oriented languages and you have experience with them, and you have if you are displaying that experience and displaying those skills, then it is always desirable. One of the most successful candidates at S30 had 15 offers. He didn't code in any other languages than C. So even the data structure he used to make himself. And if somebody says that, okay, it is the time of that Python is going to save you a lot of time, then think about somebody who is actually making the data structure and he's getting 15 offers.
Yeah.
All right. So it is because of a reason. And the way he coded, then the way he explained his things when he used to make the data structures, it was so a great engineer will love it. It is just like a great painter painting the ceilings. Right? So that having a C++ is not only in Bloomberg, it is going to have a bias with the great engineers. It is going to have a bias in other organizations as well, and you will do it. You will do it. When you become great engineers, you will be having that unwritten bias. You will on every platform you'll be saying that, okay, the language doesn't matter, but if you have C++, then it is better.
Yeah.
Right.
I just want to add on to that is that he's very right, because I use Python, but I'm very aware of what when I write code in an interview, I explain my Python code like it's C++ code. I will talk about everything, because the thing is that if you don't know, that's a problem. If you know it, right, whatever language you use, you're going to talk about those things because you're considering them when you're writing that code, right? So I think that's very important. If you don't use a low-level language, then you are burdened with convincing the other guy that you know what's going on. And that's why I think I did that sort of implicitly with the vectors, that example of scaling up, scaling down, and stuff like that, operating systems and stuff like that. So it's definitely important.
Got it. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. That okay, if you write in any language, and the engineers will come to know that whether you know the memory level details.
Exactly.
You
I
can
agree.
write in Python, but as soon as you start talking about the integer overflows, you will be talking about integer overflows in the Python also. And
exactly,
the data science and students will never know that what we are talking about. Right. So that is going to be a critical difference. Siddharth, go ahead. What's your question?
Actually, it might not be relevant to the interview, but just I wanted to know from Anirudh, like, before his graduation, when did he start getting his interviews? Means how many
I
months
have not
ago?
graduated. I have not graduated yet. I graduate a year later in May 23. So I guess that should answer your question.
Because I am also graduating in May 2023, and the most of the recruiters who I've spoken to, like Toyota, Amazon, they are saying that since you are graduating in May, so we can't conduct your interviews.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Like recruiters will say that to you because recruiters are not in charge of usually what is called university recruiting. And university recruiting is what will happen now. And then later on, it will just be slot filling, whatever they require. Jaspinder, I think you want to say something.
Yeah, I think Siddharth is not from S30, right, Siddharth?
No, I am from S30. I'm from June cohort, actually.
So why are you not applying through the referrals from Priya? Have you do you have that many points?
Means I have the points, but regarding the third party thing, which I have to write for the recommendation.
Got it. But that's what Anirudh is saying, right? University recruiting is different from the other side of the. You should keep applying to different places. This is testing times, and just by we have Anirudh. He is successful. He had a great. That's why I asked him that. Okay, in this period when a lot of our students are not getting the calls, how he managed to have the call, and there are certain reasons for that. But it's fine. This is not this year only, but last year also by this time we had a lot of students who were already in the great companies. But don't take one or two recruiters' word for it. That okay, they are saying that. My answer to this is that okay, you should be having a sampling of at least 6 recruiters. If 6 recruiters are saying the same thing, then it is the same thing. Neither you'll know that okay, that recruiters talk about different things at different times. But this time it'll be fine, Siddharth, because a lot of companies have actually frozen the things.
Yeah. Oh, can I just say something that I might have picked up on? Siddharth, if I'm wrong, like correct me. But it seems like Siddharth is not using the S30 referral channel because he's been too lazy to type out his third part. Like, and Jaspinder didn't say that to you because he cannot. But like, these are the things that you don't do when times are tough, right? Because there are at least 10 referrals that were, because I've been in that group, right? It's very popular. Like it keeps coming up. So you've probably already missed a few applications that you are never going to change your entire picture in a day, but that one stroke, right? Every day you can make the right decision. Like after this call, that right decision for today is to sit down and write your passage, that third party paragraph, submit it and get all the referral applications in, right? That's all. I just wanted to say that.
All right, we have overshot. It is 1 hour 15 minutes and we didn't even realize it. But I will give, yes, Sai, go ahead. I'll take last 2 questions. Anirudh has to go as well. Sai, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, Anirudh. I have one question regarding the engineering manager round. So during that round, were you asked any system design questions, high level design?
No. Can I ask you a quick follow-up?
Okay, yeah. Sure.
Are you in for the EM round next?
No, I actually have 2 technical rounds next, and after that engineering. One of my friend has engineering round, so.
Oh no, I was just saying that tell your friend just to stay relaxed, because usually an EM round just means that he has to not go there and mess up, right? So don't worry too much about system design is usually 30 minutes is not enough for a system design interview. Because their first 10 minutes is your introduction, and then last 10 minutes is for questions. So it's basically a 10-15 minute chat about your resume, but it will be technical. So if there is anything on your resume that is a glorification of what you have done, make sure you have stories to back up those glorifications, because they will ask. I had a claim on my resume that talked about the percentage decrease in database load. I had to explain to him how I set up an experiment to pull that information. So it's that, anything on your resume, if there is a dot on your resume, they can ask you why that dot is there. Explain it. So that is all you have to worry about for the EM round.
Yeah, got it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining in, and thank you so much, Anirudh, for your insights. I'll give the stage to you if you want to wrap up the things, and if you want to give some quick tips that we might have missed, then go ahead and give those tips to the students.
I would just like to say that the process that you're on, right, is probably one of the hardest things that you're ever going to do. Because it's a mountain. Once you climb it, the views are really nice. But while you're climbing, it's the worst thing ever. You don't want to do it ever. But honestly, the last thing I will say is, I didn't want to say this early on, but in my Bloomberg interview process, the only time I prepped for the interviews was before my phone screen. Once I got my phone screen, till those 14 days when I was interviewing, I have not done even one problem, because I was confident that after my first interview, I knew that it's going to be okay. It's going to be fine. So all I did was have technical conversations with my peers about things on their resumes, so that I learned new stuff that was still productive, and it gave me insight about things that I could talk about in the interview, because I knew that lead code and stuff like that was in the back. These guys, my peers who had WorkX, right? So I have stuff to draw from them. So I'll just summarize quickly 2 things. It's hard work, but it's work that's worth doing. The second thing is, remove everybody in your life that is not, if there is an edge of information from you just going out to somebody else and no edge coming back, that's a node you don't need. If for the next 4, 5, 6 months, you have to be the stupidest person in your circle, because only that means that every interaction you have, you learn something. So if there are people that make you feel smart, if there are people that make you feel like you're the shit, get rid of them. When you get that job, come back and tell them that, okay, now I am the shit, I agree with you. That's my last 2 cents.
All right, words of wisdom, and a lot of words of wisdom from your father also. I'm a big fan of. From your conversation, he's a very experienced person. All right, and he gave you a lot of great
He did.
And this is one of the things that I appreciate, that you keep interacting with. It should not be technical. It should be the personal or the emotional. How you keep yourself balanced and keep having conversation with anybody, any of the mentors. All right. Thank you so much, Anirudh. And we'll be seeing more offers. We'll be seeing more career progresses. And good luck.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Jaswinder. Thank you, everybody that attended it. I hope you guys get everything that you're looking for.
Bye, guys.